Calling to order the regular meeting of the Wheeling Plan Commission for Thursday, July 11th, 2019. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Secretary, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Blanova.
Here.
Commissioner Creech.
Present.
Commissioner Yednick.
Here.
Chairman Johnson.
Here. What about Commissioner Kalis?
I was going to ask you if Commissioner Kalis is present.
Steve, any changes to the agenda tonight?
There is one correction to the agenda on the second page under public hearing information, items 2019-17A and B. Within the middle of that notice, there item 2019 it reads as 2019-6B, whereas it should read 2019-17B. So that's just a typo there. Staff apologizes for that.
Thank you. Citizen concerns and comments. I see nobody has signed in. Is there anyone? Okay. Consent items. Docket number SCBA 19-16, Gorditas La Milpa, 48 West Dundee Road, for the appearance approval of a wall sign.
So move.
Do I hear a motion?
So move.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Kalis, seconded by Commissioner Creech. Roll call.
Commissioner Kalis votes yes. Commissioner Creech.
Yes.
Commissioner Blanova.
Yes.
Commissioner Yednick.
Yes.
Chairman Johnson.
Yes. Okay, moving on to items for review. Docket number 2019-15, Gorditas La Milpa, 48 West Dundee Road, special use for a sit-down restaurant. Mr. Secretary?
Which one do I read first?
The notice first.
All right. Gorditas La Milpa, lessee, seeking special use approval as required under Title 19 zoning of the Wheeling Municipal Code, Chapter 19-06, Commercial Districts, and Chapter 19-10, Use Regulations, and associated sections in order to establish a sit-down restaurant for the property located at 48 West Dundee Road. Right in here, all right. Special use as defined by the zoning code is a use of parcel of land that requires review and consideration before approval due to the potential for negative impacts on surrounding properties. In order to be considered for a special use, the petitioner is required to demonstrate through testimony to the Plan Commission at a public hearing that their request meets the standards of the Village Code, including, but not limited to, how the proposed use will not damage the enjoyment or use of the surrounding properties. Prior to the public hearing, the petitioner provides written statements meant to show that their request meets the standards for special use as established in Title 19. The Commission chairperson will typically direct that these statements be entered into the record without a full reading of them at the hearing. Based on the testimony and supporting materials submitted, the Plan Commission will make findings in support of or against the petitioner's testimony and report those findings to the Village Board.
Thank you. Mr. Robles, anything on this one?
Yeah, this request is a special use for a sit-down restaurant. Based on the zoning of the property and the uses allowed in there, sit-down restaurants do require a special use. The former bakery did have a special use on this, but it was for a carryout. The applicant would like to allow for customer seating. So this is kind of the request is to increase to allow for dine-in as well as carry out. The provided floor plan does indicate that indicates that there are 20 customer seats and there would be 2 employees. Based on the parking requirements, that would result in 9 parking spaces that would be required for this proposed use at this space. However, there are only 8 parking spaces allocated for this tenant within the center. Therefore, the total number of seating would have to be reduced to no more than 18 plus 2 employees to be at the maximum space count of 8 parking spaces. So staff has placed a condition on the recommendation that would that the total number of seating shall not exceed 18 seats, and the petitioner can simply revise their floor plan at time of permit to, and staff will verify at the time of permit that the seat count is at the maximum 18. With that, if there's any other questions for staff, I am available.
Anyone at this point? Okay. Is the petitioner here? Come on up. Raise your right hand. This is a public hearing, so we have to swear you in. Do you swear the testimony you're going to give tonight to be the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. No, your name and address. Irma Campos.
My name is Irma Campos,
And address.
and 48 West Dundee Road.
And are you-
So we're, Martha Campos, 48 West Dundee Road.
Okay,
Sorry.
Okay, so explain what it is you're going to be doing here.
Yeah, so we're trying to do a sit-down restaurant for the Gorditas La Milpa. So just to say that the drawings have been modified to only include 18 parking spaces, and I believe they have been submitted as well for review. So basically, this restaurant is going to be just authentic Mexican food. It's going to be homemade corn tortillas, and it's going to be stuffed with like Mexican dishes. So we feel that by having a seating option, a sit-in option, the community is going to be able to come in and enjoy the food there and, like get together there at the restaurant.
Okay. Anything else you want to add?
You want to add anything? Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, that's kind of it. I mean, the location is like a commercial, there's other, locales there, there's restaurants and like a grocery. So, I mean, it's good for just the community, I think so, to be able to come in and enjoy our food.
Okay, thank you. This is a public hearing, so if there was anybody in the audience that wanted to speak on this matter? Apparently not. So we will go to the commissioners. Start with Commissioner Creech this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no questions at this time. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Blanova.
Thank you. That metal bar, like a stopper, I guess, on the left side, is it possible, I would just recommend to paint it? It's look rusted, looks really like
Metal?
damaged or something. Yeah, that metal
and the
bar.
parking, next to the parking space? Okay, we're gonna make notes.
And any plans to put any stripes because looks like those yellow ones, they already.
I'm sorry, the yellow marks?
The paving
Stripes, paving
markings.
marks.
Oh, that needs to be like remarked?
Just recommend because you can barely see them.
Okay. So, let me see.
They're a tenant.
Yes, they're a tenant.
I mean, can we put that kind of a condition on?
I wouldn't put it as a condition. She can
No,
mention
I
it.
just recommend
You can,
it.
she can mention it so that it gets
Yeah.
passed along to the landlord that it needs to be. If it's not, then it'll be a code issue for the landlord, but we wouldn't add it as a tenant, as a condition.
But you can put a little pressure on the,
That's on the tenant.
landlord.
I'm sorry, the landlord. I was confused. Okay, will do.
anything else?
You putting any advertising on the window, like for example on this picture in the bakery, it says what they do. Anything you're planning to do there?
I think right now, ¿tú piensas que va a haber como decoraciones en las ventanas? Like for the restaurant? Any advertising or anything? Probably, I mean, the name, again,
The name, the
maybe
sign.
a menu posted,
Okay.
and maybe just some like graphics, like a Milpa, like a corn
Okay,
stalk,
that
something
would
like
make
that.
sense.
Yeah.
Well, that's all I have. Thank you.
Commissioner Kalis.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for wanting to bring business into Wheeling. I had a similar thought. So there's three things on the exterior. Just our job is to recommend that you beautify, Wheeling and whatnot. So there's the railing on the left, the striping, and this is all stuff with the landlord. But there's also like a tile missing off of the left side on, like if you go up towards the sign. I don't know if that white tile fell off or something, you know?
Oh, okay.
So just some things to make a note of to the landlord, if you could impress upon them to help you make it look nicer. Those three things. You said you're okay with the 18 seats and submitted
Yeah.
that. This might be a question for Steve, but I saw on the drawings in the interior that storage was indicated. Does that, about a quarter of it was a freezer, does that meet the requirement for dry storage for a restaurant? I didn't see any dimensions.
The Health Division has reviewed the floor plan and found the floor plan to be in compliance.
Okay.
They didn't have any further revisions that were required.
Okay.
When this comes in for permit, it'll also be re-reviewed again by the Health Division, just to make sure that if there have been any changes, that it meets the code requirements for dry storage, cold
Okay.
storage, everything.
Great. And then, just in general, I'm curious, this is not a requirement or anything, you're next to one of my favorite carnitas spots in town. I'm curious, how are you different than your potential neighbor in what you're serving? Or are you not? That's okay.
Yeah, they do more, I believe, like tacos, where we're not going to be doing tacos. And they do carnitas, which is like just basically like that one dish that's the only like type of like meat, I believe.
Okay.
But we're gonna do more like guisos or like dishes where it's like we're like, you know, like with like a different ingredients. So we're not gonna actually do tacos. And we're also gonna do like tortillas, like homemade tortillas. So they're gonna be stuffed in the tortilla, so it's not gonna be essentially, we're not doing, you know, the same, like we're not doing carnitas, for example.
Okay.
The type of dish, we're not doing that. So it's gonna be different.
Okay. Good. That's seems like you can go to both and do like sort of and
Like-
pardon
like
my ignorance of, you know, the cuisine, but
Yeah.
I want to know, for the thousands of people watching on TV, I'm sure you can promote, you know, how you're different and that they can go to both of them technically. So, I mean, get different things. So I like the variety. So thanks for explaining that. Everything else looks good to me, so I'm good. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Yedna.
Okay, thank you guys.
Yeah, thanks. Hello?
Hang on,
Oh, hold on.
we're
Yeah,
not done.
I'm done.
Oh,
No, we are
I
not
thought
done.
we were done, sorry.
At this point, you're not planning on selling any alcohol?
No.
Oh, okay. I've never had a Gorditas. Sounded intriguing when I was reading about it, so I'm gonna have to try and, if everything gets approved, I'll have to try and stop in. That's all that I had.
All right, and I had nothing that hasn't already been discussed. I assume you'll come back to us when you decide on signage and whatnot.
Just approve their side.
So, with that, anything else, Steve, on your end?
I just, clarification point or just a house clearing item is that just wanted to clarify that the staff report and the petitioner's submittal materials are part of the record for tonight. So I just wanted a formality there, that's all.
All right, with that, I will accept a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Kalis, Commissioner Blanova.
All right. Commissioner Kalis votes yes. Commissioner Blanova?
Yes?
Commissioner Creech?
Yes.
Commissioner Yannick?
Yes.
And Chairman Johnson?
Yes. We'll have something for you to sign and take with you. Yes, you need to sign one of them.
They sign and then you.
Okay, I was like, wait.
All right, come on up. Let's sign both of those.
You
And
only need one.
Oh, you only one?
You only need one person. And then there's a second one on the.
all right, and you take one of those. That's for you.
Then and I'll follow up either tomorrow or next week and let you know
The
the
next
next
steps?
steps. Yep.
Okay, well,
Okay.
thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you,
You
everyone.
can, you don't have to stick around, you can. feel free
Thank
to
you.
leave.
Okay, thanks. Have a good day.
All right, next up, docket number 2019-19, 415 Walnut Avenue setback variation. 415 Walnut Avenue, variance to permit a reduction in side yard setback. Mr. Robles, well, no,
My turn.
Secretary.
All right. Jack Arnaud, property owner, seeking a variation from Title 19 zoning of the Wheeling Municipal Code, Chapter 19-04, residential districts and associated sections to permit a reduction of the side setback for detached accessory buildings from the minimum required 6 feet to 3 feet to construct a detached garage for the property located at 415 Walnut Avenue. And a zoning variation is intended to be a method of adjustment to equalize regulations where the zoning code has created an unnecessary hardship. A variation is designated or designed to allow affected property owners the same rights and privileges that others enjoy in the same zoning district. In order to be granted a variation, a petitioner is required to demonstrate through testimony to the Plan Commission at a public hearing that their request meets the standards of the village code, including, but not limited to, how their individual situation is unique or unusual. Prior to the public hearing, the petitioner provides written statements meant to show that their request for variation meets the standards established in Title 19. The commission chairperson will typically direct that these statements be entered into record without a full reading of them at the hearing. Based on the testimony and supporting materials submitted, the Plan Commission will make findings in support of or against the petitioner's testimony and report those findings to the village board.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Robles.
Thank you. Just for a brief summary, that the homeowner is seeking a setback variance for a detached accessory structure or garage. The code requires a 6-foot setback. The petitioner is seeking to reduce that to a 3-foot setback to allow for sufficient maneuvering into the 2-car garage space. Similar to other garages in the area that were built to pre-existing standards, many of these detached garages are at a reduced setback from the current code requirements. So staff is recommending approval, and there aren't any conditions that staff has included with the recommendation.
Very well. Is the petitioner here? Come on down. It's a public hearing, so do you swear the testimony you're going to give to be the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Name and obviously the address.
Jack Arnold, 415 Walnut Avenue, Wheeling.
All right. State your case.
I'm looking to construct a 2.5-car garage, 20 by 22, in the rear west side of the backyard. But my yard is not that deep. It's only like, I don't know, 30-something feet deep. So I can't go back to the easement. I have to stay 6 foot off the back easement. Then if I go 6 foot from the right or the west easement, it's kind of too far in the back of my house. I don't have the space to be able to back out of the left-hand side of the garage. So I'm looking to try to get as much space as I can to move it over 3 extra feet. So I'm back to the 3-foot easement that they had years ago. My neighbor's garage is 3 foot off the fence, the property line, so
Okay.
I'm trying to copycat.
I was wondering when I was looking at it how far his
Yep.
was. So. All right.
And I had a house similar to that in Wheeling, where the two driveways went up together, and I had there was a garage here, and my garage was, so there was 6 foot in between both. So I'm trying to copycat that with this home.
Very good.
I don't know when they built these houses, if it was, they thought about building 2-car garages in the backyard, because I know a lot of them on Wheeling Avenue have 1 single car. I know people have more than 1 car. So I'm trying to fit the garage back there somehow, some way.
All right. This is the public hearing. If there's anyone who came to discuss this matter? Looks like not. So we'll go to the commission. Commissioner Yednick.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. This is question is for staff. I assume the neighbors were notified and they had an opportunity to come forward if they wanted. Okay.
That's correct, yep.
And how long have you owned this property?
Approximately like 14 years, since 2002 or,
Okay, so you got it with the, it was in this condition when you bought the property then?
yes.
Okay. I think you already answered the question. The neighbor's garage is already, or for staff, that already is basically as a variation because it was pre-existing condition?
Yeah, staff wasn't able to find an actual variance for that, for the detached garage. We looked within the neighborhood to see if there were any variations that were granted, couldn't find any. So it's most likely that the setbacks that used to be in place for this residential district allowed for a reduced setback and then have since been updated.
Prior to the existing code?
Right,
Okay.
correct.
So the new garage then is going to be right up to, basically, is the property line the concrete line we see in the driveway, the center line of the driveway? It's kind
We
of,
actually put the driveways together. There's like a 4-foot or a 4-inch on the other side of, that belongs to the owner or the other owner.
okay, so that doesn't, that line in the concrete.
Years ago, there used to be
That doesn't define it, but it's close. I mean,
Yep. Yeah, it's
so there,
four
you
inches
said there was
away.
going to be about 6 feet between the garages. Then I was just curious if the fire department had any concerns with that clearance between those two structures?
Actually, it's considered, it's like a lot of other ones as he's referred to in a neighborhood. So it's something we kind of just have to deal with.
Live with it now, okay. That's all I have, no further questions.
All right, Commissioner Kalis?
Thank you, Chairman. I was mostly waiting to see if there would be any, your neighbors to come and say anything, and they didn't, so assuming they're okay with it.
They'd love to see a garage there,
Yeah.
especially my neighbor.
Okay.
We have 2 newer cars, and that's the idea of getting a garage, so we get them cars out of the weather.
Okay, so to the contrary, they're in favor of it, that's good. Okay, not that that necessarily matters, but I was just curious to see if anyone's saying anything. Has the Plan Commission or staff ever seen an issue with residential setback, making it smaller? Like, is there anything we should be concerned about that has?
You know, generally when there's a request to reduce a setback, it's to obviously prevent an encroachment into a neighboring property and preventing their use and enjoyment of their property.
Yeah.
You know, there may be a staff concern if there was a patio or some usable area of the neighbor's yard there, that there may be some concern that,
Sure.
that bringing the structure closer could affect that. However, since the neighboring property to the west is the garage itself,
Yeah.
there's really no impact there from that perspective.
Yeah, I was just curious, in the whole village, I guess, has there been a big red flag issue that has happened in the past that we should be aware of? Not trying to make up issues, I just,
No,
you know.
not that I'm
Okay,
immediately aware of.
yeah, okay, cool. Then I'm good, no further questions.
All right, Commissioner Creech?
I have nothing, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Commissioner Blanova?
I have nothing, thank you.
And I think you answered my question about the space between the 2 garages. You'll be able to get in there to mow or whatever you're gonna.
Hopefully, if I get this 3 foot, I'll be able to squeeze in there. I'll have enough room. The sales guy said there was enough room, so. But I'm just trying to get,
Of course they did.
I'll have 16 foot, I think, that I got up there between the rear of that house to the front of the garage door.
Are you taking some of your patio out to widen your drive or?
Yep, that's why it's,
I see the line there,
yeah, they're supposed to saw cut that and then put the drive in there.
Okay. That's all I had. So do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Creech and Commissioner Yednick?
Right, Commissioner Creech,
Yes.
Commissioner Yednick,
Yes.
Commissioner Blanova,
Yes,
Commissioner Kalis votes yes, and Chairman Johnson.
Yes. We'll have something for you to sign in a second here.
Yeah. I don't think they thought about those back then.
Yeah. 2 cars, who would have 2 cars?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, okay. Nobody will ever have 2 cars.
Yeah, nobody can afford 2 cars. All right, sign down there on both sheets, and you can take one home with you. All right, thank you.
Thanks. I'll follow up with you the next day or two and let you know the next step. Thank you.
All right. Docket number 2019-17A and B, Hutton, 1048 South Milwaukee Avenue. 2019-17A is special use site plan and appearance approval to establish a gas station with convenience store. And 2019-17-17B, special use to establish a sit-down restaurant with drive-through.
All right, Hutton, applicant seeking the following request, 2019-17A, special use site plan and appearance approval as required under Title 19 zoning of the Wheeling Municipal Code, Chapter 19-06, Commercial Districts, Chapter 19-10, Use Regulations, Chapter 19-12, Site Plan Approval Requirements, and associated sections, in order to establish a gas station with a convenience store, and 2019-7B, Special Use Approval as required under Title 19, Zoning of the Wheeling Municipal Code, Chapter 19-06, Commercial Districts, Chapter 19-10, Use Regulations, and associated sections, in order to establish a sit-down restaurant with drive-through for the property located at 1048 South Milwaukee Avenue.
That's it. You don't have to read that.
Okay, great.
All right, thank you. Mr. Robles.
Thank you. The 2 requests tonight, special use for the first special use is for the gas station and convenience store component. And then within the gas station, there will be a few tables with a few chairs and kind of a quick service restaurant component that will have a drive-through with that, and as a result requires a special use for the sit-down restaurant portion. It won't be a full service or a full dining component, but just because it has the option for a few tables and chairs, the special use for that is required as well. Property is zoned in the B3 district and also located within the industrial lane redevelopment plan of the comprehensive plan, which generally comprehensive plans will just provide a general land use recommendation such as commercial or industrial, residential, whatever that may be. However, in the industrial lane redevelopment plan, the recommendation is specific for this property, which is a gas station. So
I do remember seeing that.
this request is very consistent with the industrial lane redevelopment plan and the recommendation there for that. Based on the petitioner's proposal, staff has, excuse me, staff has identified a few items that would like the Plan Commission to either seek some clarification on or provide some further input from the petitioner on. During the concept review at the village board on July 1st, this was the initial elevations that were presented, and staff had some concerns regarding the porcelain panels and just their ability to how durable they were, as well as consistency with the building design and the rest of the building materials. The village board also shared staff's concerns regarding that, and as a result, between the July 1st concept meeting and tonight's meeting, the petitioner has revised the elevations to what you see on the screen here. A slight change in the elevations, kind of simplified the roof lines in the front elevation, the east elevation, and in the west, increased the height of the parapet, which staff does appreciate. There's been the inclusion of there's a herringbone pattern tile that it's hard to see that detail on the rendering there. However, the petitioner has recently provided staff with a manufactured spec, which would be this material here. So that is proposed to replace the porcelain tile that was initially presented at the plant or at the village board to go in these areas here.
But in herringbone?
But in herringbone pattern, correct,
okay.
correct. But that color, that texture. Additionally, there's a white block or stone base that has been added around all four sides of the building as well. Apologize while I scroll through this quickly, but again, that's that would be the white color and the kind of the consistency of that material that's being proposed. So given the change between the village board concept review and the appearance review being requested tonight, staff would just have the plan commission kind of look at that and see if that is an acceptable change and replacement. The other element is that there is an existing billboard or off-premise sign is the technical term, but a billboard on the property that's been existing. It has been in place. The petitioner has not shown the billboard on the site plan, so staff would like the confirmation on whether or not the billboard is going to be removed as shown on the site plan, or if in fact that will remain. If it is to remain, then it does need to be shown on the site plan, because as the Plan Commission is aware, the site plan is what will be conditioned upon the approval and be subject to the construction requirements and the site improvements upon permitting. There are a couple other conditions that are noted in the staff report, and staff would be happy to go through those in specifics if the Plan Commission would like. But I would like to turn over to the petitioner for their full presentation. And lastly, just like to note for the record that the staff report and the petitioner's submittal materials are part of the record for tonight.
All right, thank you. The petitioner group that's going to talk? Raise your hand. You swear the testimony you're going to give tonight to be the truth?
Yes, sir.
State your name and business address.
Ben Carroll with Hutton, 736 Chattanooga, or 736 Cherry Street, Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Thank you. Is anyone else going to be speaking? Or
Let me just introduce myself. So I'm with the developer, Hutton. We do have a tenant that will be operating the gas station in this facility, but tonight we do have, actually the property owner is here, the current property owner. We have it under contract. We also have the architect and the civil engineer. So we're all here to answer any questions that may come up tonight. And, but we have read through the staff recommendations. I do have a few comments on some of those. I don't know if you want to go through those now or wait until they come up later.
State your case from the beginning and then we can hammer out details.
All right. First of all, let me just ask, is there any general questions? I know you all have the renderings, the site plan, the building elevations, just things like that. If anybody has any questions, I'd like to address those before I go into any of the staff recommendations or questions.
Typically we want to hear your story first, and then each of us will have some questions, I'm sure.
Okay, sure. So as Steve stated, this is in the industrial redevelopment plan. This is the exact use that is actually recommended in that plan. It meets the future land use plan, all of that for the city. We've got very positive feedback from staff, and we also went before village board for the concept review. I guess it was a week ago. Favorable comments there as well. So we feel good about the project. We think it's definitely an improvement to what's there today. If I may address some of the comments from the staff. Comment number 4 is the sidewalk, talks about the sidewalk along Sumac Road. And I guess I'm looking, Steve, I'll ask for some clarification on this. In the language there, it says that that we would plat an easement for that. And the sidewalk is to be owned and maintained by the easement owner. Is it the intent that we, as a developer, would own and maintain that sidewalk or dedicate it to the village?
This was an engineering comment, and I don't want to make assumptions for engineering, so I'll defer to Kyle with any information on that.
Because of the sidewalk and because, I guess, the frontage here is a private road, village does not want to maintain, will not maintain responsibility and ownership of that sidewalk. I think the easement is more for ingress, egress for, pedestrians to use the sidewalk and have access to the businesses further down the street. So because it's not a village-owned roadway, it's a private roadway, we can't really take ownership of the sidewalk.
Okay, and just to address that comment, and I don't know if this is something we have to decide tonight, but we would prefer that the village own the sidewalk. We're willing to construct it. It's been a request by staff that we provide the sidewalk. We don't have an issue doing that. Our preference would be that the village own it, though, because it is benefiting the public. And because of that, we feel like it's a public, it should be owned and maintained by the public. And again, I don't know if that's something we need to decide tonight, but I just wanted it to be known that that's our preference on that. And then also speaking of the sidewalk, and Steve, I apologize, and Kyle, because we haven't mentioned this to you before, but as we were looking at the plans a little further today, we think it may make sense to locate that sidewalk on the south side of Sumac rather than the north side as shown in the current site plan. And the reason for that being that we would avoid the sidewalk crossing two driveways into the property, so I feel like it'd be a little safer. And as you look further west along Sumac Road, if it's on the north side of Sumac, the other properties have ditches along there. So if that sidewalk were to be extended, it's a little bit more difficult to do with the ditches that are further along Sumac Road. So it may make sense that we locate it on the south side. On all the adjacent properties are more level on that side as well. So again, I don't know if that's something we need to decide tonight, but just wanted to put that out there for discussion. And then comment number 6 is dealing with the irrigation plan. And it says prior to the issuance of a building permit, an irrigation plan should be included for staff review. And we have no problem with providing the irrigation plan, but we don't have it now, and we may not have it before the time that we would pull a building permit. So we'd rather have that state that we would provide the irrigation plan prior to construction for staff approval, but we would not want it to hold up the building permit. And the reason for that is quite often we do the irrigation as a design build, and we may not have a landscape contractor selected by the time we're ready to pull a building permit. So we'd rather have that as a deferred submittal, much like a fire sprinkler system as a deferred submittal, that type of thing. It just gives us more flexibility to have the actual person that's going to be installing it handle the design and do that at a more appropriate time and it not affect our building permit. And then number 7 in the staff recommendations is asking for the clarification on the billboard. And it is our intent that we would like to keep the billboard. It is an income source for the property. It is a legal use today, and it does not conflict with what we're proposing to do on the property. So our preference is to keep the billboard. I think there was a comment in the concept review about, if we keep it to at least help with the appearance of it some. We do recognize there's some paint peeling, some things like that. So, we can handle some maintenance on the billboard, have it repainted, that type of thing to make it look a little nicer. And the comments that I did not make a comment on, we're fine with.
Okay.
And much of all of this is as we've discussed with staff, for past several weeks. So I feel like together with staff, we've come up with a pretty good plan as to where we are today.
All right, now explain, besides the conditions that we just talked about, what it is you're proposing.
Okay.
As far as the restaurant and everything else.
Yeah, sorry about that.
I sat in on the presentation you did for the village board, but
okay.
I don't know if everybody else saw that. So.
Sure. So it's a convenience store, pretty typical convenience store. In addition to your typical convenience store items, it will have a coffee user that's a user inside the store. So it'll be located on the south end. The coffee user will have a drive-through window. Cars will enter the side, around the side of the building on the north, around the back, and then the pickup window is on the south side of the building. And the coffee user that the tenant is looking at having there is Big B Coffee. I don't think there's any in this area right now, but it's.
What's it called?
Big B.
Big B.
Yeah, but it's similar to like a Starbucks, Caribou Coffee, several of those other
There was
coffee
one
types. It's sort of a higher end coffee. They don't have typically many food offerings with that. There's a few prepackaged food offerings, but it's mostly just the made on site coffee. The grocery store, or the convenience store, sorry, will have your typical convenience store items. You know, they may sell hot dogs and nachos and things like that as far as food goes. But, you know, typically it's prepackaged foods. Nothing is actually cooked on site in this concept. They may have some pizzas that are warmed up, things like that, but it's mostly warming of foods, not cooking of foods. So we do have the main gas canopy out front, will be all your regular gas. And then to the south side, there's a standalone canopy that will have diesel fuel. And that's meant to service several of the, you know, larger trucks that are in this industrial area on Sumac and the roads to the north.
All right, anything else?
I think that's it.
All right, this is a public hearing. If there's anyone who would like to speak on this matter, again, nobody. All right, so we will go to the commissioners. Let's start with Commissioner Creech again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'd like to thank you for a very professional packet, so I have very few questions. I guess was the right turn, left turn onto Milwaukee Avenue approved yet?
Yeah, so we've done a traffic study and submitted that to the state. The state controls Milwaukee Avenue, and that's under review by them right now. But we do believe a left turn lane will be recommended by the state to be built into Sumac.
Your MWRD submittal on here stated that you didn't completely meet their recommendation. I know it's just a small number, but I would like to see you at least meet that or exceed that particular number. And your idea for the sidewalk was a good one. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Yednek.
I guess I'm just curious what staff's comments are, or, I mean, it sounds like the petitioner says they don't want to take ownership of the sidewalk, but the village is saying we're not, you know, it seems like an open question that hasn't been resolved. Do we need to resolve that tonight, or can that remain an open question?
I think what the Plan Commission can do is note a preference as part of a recommendation. Ultimately, that will need to be decided upon, you know, Public Works and whether or not they are willing to, and the village board ultimately, if they're willing to accept ownership and maintenance of a piece of sidewalk on a road that is not a village road. So I think that's ultimately, you know, a decision to be had between Public Works and the village board. But I think the Plan Commission can certainly, you know, provide what you as a collective commission feel is preferred. In terms of locating on the north side or the south side, you know, from a planning perspective, I don't, there's really not too much problem with that. Having the sidewalk on the north side of Sumac does provide some immediate pedestrian access to this site, but understanding that there are less, you know, topographical challenges on the south side of Sumac. You know, I guess at the end of the day, there's nothing there now in terms of sidewalk, so something is better than what is there now.
Well, I don't know if you can do the sidewalk on the side. I'm looking at the geometric plan, and now they're adding in a right turn lane. There actually looks like Sumac's going to be widened as you're going into Milwaukee. So I'm not seeing where you'd be able to place a sidewalk on that side.
It would have to be, redesigned, and again, that would have to be subject to approval by engineering as well to make sure that it meets all of the village standards for a sidewalk.
Okay.
So again, I think that's more of a, if it's a preference to the plan commission to have it on one side or the other. I don't think staff has a strong desire to see it on one side or the other on that regard.
Okay.
In terms of the billboard, again, it's not illustrated on this plan. If the intent is to keep it, then the plan needs to be updated to show that on the plan so that when the permits do come in, it is reflective of what they're to build. And then in terms of the irrigation plan, we can certainly work with the petitioner to work with them so that they can start construction on the site, and then we can work on some abilities for them to submit the irrigation permit while the building is constructed, and we can work on timing of that, so that's not a problem in that regard.
Give them a deadline of something?
We would probably say we would need to have that permit in for review before we would issue a certificate of occupancy, so that we.
Well, you were just asking.
Yeah, and we're happy to
Before
submit it
construction.
before we
Right.
install it. Yeah, we just didn't want it holding up a permit if by chance we don't have a contractor selected in
So-
time to
So
do
they
it.
can get the permits.
Even if, so with that,
Start
we would just want the permit in to make sure that it's in and it's going to be done. And kind of the last stand would be certificate of occupancy. And most likely in terms of the construction sequencing, they would have that plan well before they're ready to occupy the building. So that shouldn't be a problem from a construction sequence standpoint.
Commissioner Yednick, any?
Yeah, I had a little bit more. I didn't go to the village meeting, but I did watch the tape. So I saw, you're not going to have any access driveways off of Milwaukee. You're just going to have.
That's correct.
The easternmost one is going to be a right in, right out only, correct?
It's actually just going to be a ride-in.
Just right in?
Just a ride-in, yeah, and we can put whatever striping and signage we need to do there to make that very clear that it's ride-in
All
only.
right, so I'm curious then, if you have a semi that comes in off of the western driveway, they're going to be facing Milwaukee Avenue when they're pumping, when they're gassing.
Yeah,
How
that-
are they going to get out of the
Yeah.
facility?
Well, the intent is that they come in from Milwaukee and take that ride-in only and enter that way. And we'll have signage that conveys that.
But what if somebody that's, you want to service the buildings
Yeah,
down the
well,
road?
if they do come
from
in-
down the road, how
Yeah.
are they going to get out of
If
it?
they do come in from the west, they can circle the gas canopy. That's actually how our fuel truck services the site. So the fuel truck will come from Milwaukee onto Sumac, make the ride in. You see the three ovals, those are the underground tanks
Right.
towards Milwaukee. So the fuel truck will actually park over the top of those. And when it exits, it will circle or go across the north side of the gas canopy and come back out. So a truck using that diesel canopy could do the same maneuver.
It's just, the fuel truck has to be there. I mean, I'm thinking of the customer semis, a normal convenience gas station store, the parking lots are real busy. I'm just seeing a truck really getting hung up in there, waiting for
Yeah.
the cars to give them access, and the same thing now, if they go out, they're gonna have to be going west on Sumac Road. Is there a turnaround somewhere on Sumac Road where the
No.
semis can get back out onto Milwaukee?
Yeah, the trucks that are exiting from the fuel canopy, the diesel fuel canopy, will be able to make the U-turn to go directly back out to Milwaukee. They will not have to head west.
Has that been studied and measured out?
It has.
All right. Yeah, it just seems like,
Yeah, we can provide the truck turn to staff for review for that.
The truck maneuvering has been provided to demonstrate that it can make those maneuvers.
okay, all right, well, except for getting hung up in the store with all the truck, with the car traffic, I could see them getting stuck there for a while, trying to get right away or leeway from the drivers that are going to be jockeying them around them, trying to get to the gas
Yeah.
pumps and get.
Yeah, quite honestly, I think most of the truck users will not be full 18-wheelers. It'll be, more of the box-top trucks, some kind of shorter fuel truck, landscape contractors coming in with their trailer behind a pickup truck, that kind of thing.
Okay. And then the other thing, you're not planning on selling alcohol at this point?
No.
Okay. Well, that's all I had, thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Blanova.
Thank you. On the letter, it says you will have 28 parking stalls. Can you help me identify, not the one by the building, but all others? Where is that gonna be? I see there are 4 on the Milwaukee side, but it's still not 28.
Our civil engineer, Bill, is here, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the parking spaces, the parking at the gas pump is considered a parking space.
Oh, okay.
That's
So
correct.
That's
yes.
how you make that.
There's a row of, there's the 4 parking here, there's a row of parking here, including a ADA parking space. And then the code allows for the petitioner to count a space at each pump.
It makes sense.
So, the thought being that if you have a customer that's fueling, they can then leave their car there, go into the convenience store and come out rather than having to have another parking space for them, so.
Got it, thank you. So was a concern about the porcelain tile replaced with other material. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so we're completely eliminating the porcelain tile that was originally proposed, and we'll just replace that tile with brick in a herringbone pattern. So it'll be typical brick.
Got it.
And is that, Ben, is that the color? Is that the actual color that would be used?
Yes, yes it
Okay.
is.
Okay, thank you.
That's all I have, thank you.
I believe we either have a sample or we're working on getting a sample of that. We'll send it in.
Thank you, Chairman. So you mentioned, so first of all, is Sumac also owned by IDOT?
No, that's a
Milwaukee is.
private road.
A private road.
It's a private road, yes.
Got it, okay. Not Wheeling, not IDOT, private. They will own it.
They will own.
But they don't want to own the sidewalk. Okay.
We would like for the village to own
I
Sumac as well.
I hear you loud and clear. Appreciate you offering your preference. So you mentioned that the right-in, right-out, you said you were talking to someone and you thought it was going to be approved to have a left turn. Can you restate what you were saying there?
The traffic, so.
Who is approving that?
Yeah, because we have a sidewalk that's going to be constructed in Milwaukee Avenue, we have to go to the state for a permit for that, which opens up all of the access to be reviewed by the state.
Got
So
it.
we have done a traffic study and submitted it to the state, and I believe it's mid-August. Yeah, mid-August is when the state has said they'll have their review completed, at which point we expect that they will require a left turn lane.
Require,
Yeah.
not only allow, but request. So
Right.
engineering, did you not say that you would prefer or require right-in, right-out?
I think the right-in, right-out discussion was for
It's
the entrance to
different.
the gas station. The left-in is obviously there on Milwaukee Avenue. there.
Gotcha.
Yeah, two separate.
Okay, I was mistaken there. Thank you. The billboard staying there, I appreciate that you would like more revenue, and it is there. How are you, I didn't see a rendering of how you're planning to design your signage, your monument sign there? Well, can you tell us a little bit of how that's going to work with that giant thing in the corner?
The gas station, the specific convenience store signage is proposed to be used where that arrow is pointing, which is there's an existing pylon sign there today that has the used car advertising on it. So we're going to be looking at reusing that post for our sign of the
Okay.
gas station. So the billboard will not be related to the gas station use.
So is that post, that's the post for the billboard, or no?
No, this is the post for the pylon sign that's
Got it.
probably maybe 20 feet tall, maybe a little
Okay.
taller. And then you have the billboard that is just to the west of it, that is right here. So-
Okay.
Yeah, we're still working on our signage design package, and we have not submitted that yet. We're working on that now to get in for
Okay.
submittal.
Cool. I even looked at the site in person. I didn't remember the layout, but just want to, obviously, as the developer and you want the business to succeed, I'm sure you'll figure out how to get your pricing sign and the monument and all that to look nice. You said there was a traffic study. I didn't see that, but assume that all's good there. So you proposed moving the sidewalk to the south side. Do you even own the land, or would you own the land on that
Yeah,
side?
we own the land as it shows in that site plan, and I don't know the exact number of feet, but on the east end, there's probably 6 feet or so between the edge of pavement on Sumac and the property line.
Okay.
That's at the thinnest point.
So there is Okay, there is room.
Yeah, everywhere but there, it's much wider.
Okay. I had a question of who was using the drive-through because I didn't see like an actual restaurant, so thank you for clarifying that. Be coffee shop. I think Commissioner Yednick asked you if you plan to sell alcohol right now, and you said no.
We don't.
We
have
don't
any
allow
plans.
that, so it can't be.
Yeah, we're aware there was some
Okay,
recent ordinances passed for that.
Figured you were. Just thought I'd clarify that since it was a little bit up in the air how it was said. So, Steve, just to clarify with the irrigation plan, you said they could submit that after building, but if they build the whole thing and they don't submit it, the village will not allow them to occupy. That's how it works?
I mean, that would be the way the language would be worded.
Yeah.
And that's, it sounds pretty dire, but again, as I mentioned, based on the way the construction sequencing would go.
Yeah.
The timing should never be that it would get to that point where the building's ready and there's no irrigation in there. Even so, what staff would be willing to do in that situation, if it did get to that extreme situation, is that we would work with the petitioner to say, if you submit the irrigation permit, then we can then do the release the certificate of occupancy. That way we know at least the permit's in, it's in review, they're working towards that, and then that could allow the petitioner or the operator to go in and occupy the building. So there's ways to work with that. So instead of in this case, just based on the timing of things, since Hutton's they prefer to have it come after the building at least starts construction and not hold up the permit for that, then the thing we can do is say, before we issue the CO, they at least need to get a permit in for the irrigation.
Okay.
You had mentioned the sidewalk. I don't know if Kyle's in a position to at least provide any feedback or input or recommendation on the relocation of the sidewalk.
If they can make it work, I guess the only consideration is if you're going to be moving the sidewalk to the other side of the street, there's going to be a crosswalk that needs to be installed. That crosswalk looks like it's going to be an IDOT right-of-way, which would mean it's subject to their review. Those are the only implications that I can see. It looks like there's potentially enough space there to put it on the south side, but that'd have to be reviewed a little bit, or looked at a little bit more closely.
And again, we really haven't studied it in engineering detail yet. Just want to mention that tonight so that you know that that's at least something we wanted to discuss with staff. We're perfectly willing to work with staff, and if it makes sense to keep it where it is, we're fine with that. If it makes more sense on the south side, then we can look at that as well.
Yeah, I mean, future casting, wheeling is all about walkability and bikeability, but as of right now, I don't know many people that are walking down Milwaukee Avenue outside the airport, but so the safety concern of all the thousands of people walking is, but
I think it's about
a great thought.
It's about a mile right now to the next sidewalk anywhere.
Not many people walking over there.
The village actually does have a plan to extend a sidewalk down to that point in the next 2 years, 3 years. We have a project on the books and currently in design, so it goes all the way from Hintz Road down to this intersection. So, in the next year or two, we'll have a sidewalk making its way down that way.
Does the village plan to own that sidewalk that is in the plans in 2 years?
The sidewalk in the Milwaukee Avenue right-of-way, I believe, it's kind of similar to, I believe that sidewalk will be owned by us, but that's also in the state right-of-way there. Or at least maintained by us. So I'm not sure if it's kind of a gray area. It's sidewalk that's in, for example, state right-of-way might be owned by the state, but I believe the village still maintains it. In this particular scenario, being a private roadway in a private development, I don't think we'd be interested in taking on that additional responsibility.
Okay. I echo Commissioner Yednick. Do we take a poll? How do we move forward?
Which?
The sidewalk that the petitioner doesn't want to own, or
does that fall into our?
how do we? Because that's an open item. If we say yes tonight, where does that go?
I guess we could do one of two things, and Mallory can chime in too, but you can recommend based on the plan that's submitted in front of you right now, which does show the sidewalk on the north side and doesn't really get into ownership, and then allow the petitioner at the village board to talk about the ownership aspect, and as part of their village board review, consider if the village is willing to take on that ownership responsibility, and then the village board would then add that into the legislation for that. If the plan commission wants to make the recommendation that the petitioner can decide the location of the sidewalk, north or south side, and if it's the plan commission's preference to resolve that before they go to before they go to village board, then they can do that, or if the plan commission wants it to come back.
Yeah.
So you have a final location. I think in terms of the ownership, that's ultimately the determination that needs to be made by the village board.
Yes.
With input from Public Works.
Okay, I was going to say, I don't like punting on anything, but at the same time, ownership of a walkway is very much a
I have a
board
question,
sort of
though,
thing.
in general on this sidewalk, I'm sorry but why are I'm kind of curious why we're even requiring a sidewalk. When I look at that street, it's an industrial lane. I don't really see that there's going to be foot traffic going down, and we're only talking about building a sidewalk for the length of the extent of this property. That's not going to take a sidewalk all the way back to the rest of the properties that are down Sumac. Why is it even a condition to include a sidewalk?
It's very similar to, we have our sidewalk plan. I don't believe that's the official name, but we do have the sidewalk plan. And similar to village roads where there aren't sidewalks, and we have a development proposal that is looking to improve in an area that does not have sidewalk facilities, the village does require that, and it's essentially you need to start at some point and begin the progression. So.
But what's the zoning in the long-term plan for all the properties that are going to be west on Sumac?
So
they're all going to be industrial?
The plan recommendation is for a mixture of industrial and commercial uses. Of course, it's all dependent on property ownership and the occupancy of those buildings. But, at some point, there will be development down Sumac, maybe not all at once or not within an immediate future, but there will be future development. So that, again, the thought is that we start with sidewalks in one area, on one development, and then as we receive proposals for future developments, then we establish those connections, and then that's how at the end you have a complete pedestrian pathway system throughout the village. So this is kind of one of those. There's a gap here. This is how we kind of start filling that gap. We have to start somewhere at some point. So as Kyle mentioned, there's plans to bring sidewalks along Milwaukee that would connect with this one, and then there isn't anything along Sumac right now. Granted.
I can see Milwaukee because you got the Forest Preserve on the other side of the road, but and then when you're saying commercial, is it going to be commercial like retail, or is it going to be like commercial like?
No, not retail, not shopping centers.
Then I guess I don't want to be contrarian, but I'm questioning a need for a sidewalk in this area.
Sure, and again,
can we even say as a planning commission that we say we don't see a requirement for a sidewalk? Or is it absolutely in the long-term plan of the village that we're always going to be putting sidewalks anytime there's redevelopment?
I mean, that is our approach, that when we have a new development, either redevelopment or new development, we seek for pedestrian facilities, the sidewalks, whether it be a sidewalk or a pathway, whatever that is. So that's the case here as well. If the plan commission, if it's a consensus of the plan commission to not require the sidewalk, you can certainly add that as a recommendation, and then that would be ultimately decided upon by the village board. But I think at a minimum, and I don't believe the plan commission is thinking this, but at a minimum, there should be at least a sidewalk on Milwaukee Avenue. Because that would tie in with the future
Sorry to
plans.
interrupt, Commissioner Kalis. Sorry.
It's okay. Yeah, so I'm fine with deferring to the board, just because that's more of a board decision anyway. But walkability and pedestrian related, currently it's not really a big area of people walking around or biking, but in the future we'd like to see Milwaukee booming further down towards the airport all the way through. So it is, in the future plans that people will be walking and biking. Do you have there's a bicycle rack on the plans, and with any new submittals, we appreciate a bike rack if people are biking to a gas station to get coffee. Can you include a bike rack somewhere?
Yeah, we can include a bike rack.
Thank you. Someone had to ask you.
And it probably just needs to be a two-bike rack. Yeah.
I mean, if Bigsby coffee is delicious, I might ride my bike over there, so.
Would you like to see that, have them add that before village board, or just at any point prior to, permit issuance?
Does,
I guess one of the bigger question is, are you guys going to want to see the plan again? Because there's now 3 potential changes with adding the billboard, the bike rack, and then potentially the change of location of the sidewalk on Sumac. Would you want to see that plan updated before you vote on it, or are you okay with those changes being made without seeing it?
I would like to put the sidewalk to a vote. I still question it. I know Milwaukee makes sense. Sumac to me doesn't make sense to make it a requirement. I would think it would be many, and you tear down the airport, you change the whole zoning for this neighborhood. 20, 30 years from now, maybe a sidewalk might make sense, but I don't see where it makes sense in this condition, in its case.
Well, it makes sense only because it's part of our code.
Well, but the objective as stated has been that we want to promote walkability and bikeability
Right.
and all that. I don't see somebody biking down Milwaukee to go down to Sumac to visit the gravel yards or whatever.
Not today.
Back down that
Not
road.
yet, but
our
down the
comprehensive
road,
plan
it
is
could be
20,
something.
30 years in the future, you gotta think about.
But then you're talking about, that would be changing the whole zoning for this neighborhood, and in that case, then you're going to be building different things in this neighborhood. That's,
Yeah, but
maybe I'm speaking out of turn, I don't know, but
Well, obviously, we can put it up for a poll to see if everyone wants to keep the sidewalk in there, but another.
we're talking on Sumac, not on
On
Milwaukee.
Sumac, right. Another consideration, though, is also the employees who work further down Sumac, walking up to get coffee or something from the convenience store and back. So it's not just necessarily people coming from
But they're going to be
everywhere around
walking
town.
on Sumac until they get to the edge of this property, which is right next to the convenience store, because there's no sidewalk
But the idea is
proposed for that.
if it eventually further builds down,
Okay.
that's the spur is always the hope. But, I mean, Chairman Johnson can obviously take a poll
Yeah,
of the
I'm-
commission to see if.
I've got a few polls already.
If I may make a comment, it's typical of many jurisdictions that we build in that we add sidewalks, but it's typically in a public right-of-way. And with Sumac being private, that's what makes this one a bit unique. So, I mean, we're perfectly willing to do the sidewalk in Milwaukee. We've shown the one in Sumac because staff has asked us to, but quite honestly, we'll also be seeking some TIF funds to help pay for some of those things that are extraordinary, the things that we didn't expect. And, that sidewalk in Sumac would be one of the things we'd be asking for TIF funds to cover.
Oh, that's still me. How about that?
Yeah, we got sidetracked a little bit, but still you.
So maintenance of a private sidewalk, does that include actually shoveling snow and whatnot? So the village, if they took ownership of that, they'd have to shovel the snow?
No. Well, technically sidewalks in the village are always maintained by the property owner abutting them. You are responsible for the sidewalk in front of your house.
Yeah.
Even though it's
Right.
owned and maintained by the village as far as replacing it if it's cracked or, the
So-
snow removal is always responsibility of the abutting property owner.
So then with that in mind, I'm curious from you what your apprehension to managing the sidewalk would be if you
Quite
had
honestly,
to
it's
shovel
more of a
anyway?
liability issue. I mean, we've got
Okay.
a public sidewalk. You're asking us to create an easement on our property to allow the public to use it, but you're not wanting to be responsible, or the village doesn't want to be responsible for it.
Okay,
But, so it's a bit odd to us, quite honestly, that we're having to do a sidewalk on Sumac because all the properties west of Sumac are private properties. Sumac's not a public street.
yeah.
So, it's a little odd that we're doing a sidewalk on private property to lead to other private properties.
Sure.
And then you're asking us to maintain and be responsible for
Sure.
liability of it.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
Kyle, what is the village's stance as far as the same sort of perspective of why you don't want responsibility?
Well, we can't, every new development that comes in, we can't just, start we have infinite number of resources to go and maintain all our sidewalks. If we start maintaining, every new private sidewalk that came in,
Sure.
obviously that's a cost that, we can't necessarily, handle. So, or, people that have to go out there and maintain them, we may have a sidewalk program that does maintenance on our sidewalks, but if we start taking on responsibilities of other ones.
Okay. All right. I just find it bizarre. That's a private street. Anyway, that's it for me.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Let's see if there's anything left on my list. Now, as far as the billboard, I noticed that none of your new plans showed it on there. So were you planning on not keeping it at some point?
Yeah,
And-
no, I can't tell you why it's not on there. It's not in the way of anything. Honestly, I don't know why it's not shown.
Personally, I'd like to see it gone. We've covered everything else, so let's get to some of this polling stuff.
Are you going to poll on the billboard being there or not?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
And we'll start with that one. As far as that big billboard, how do we word this? That we're in favor of them keeping it or not?
I think it's in favor of having them added to the plan and having to return to the plan commission, or allowing them to move forward and have to add it to the plan before it gets to village board.
It's a currently illegal non-conforming use on the property.
So we can't really tell them to take it down, or?
It's legally complicated.
Yeah, when I watched the
Well,
plan
that's why
commission,
you're here.
Attorney, what's it, Frillo?
Really, yeah.
Yeah, was saying that it can get very expensive to require.
Yes, it's, yeah, if we required them to take it down, it would be, we'd essentially have to pay out the, whatever is remaining on the lease. Do you guys own, or would you be the owner of the billboard, or are you leasing the billboard to the owner?
We would be the owner of the billboard, but there's a lease to use the billboard.
Okay,
So you would be responsible for maintaining it.
So you're taking over the lease?
Yeah, I'd have to review the lease again to see who's responsible for the maintenance on it, but
So,
yes.
Okay.
so it's, I mean,
So it's not really a yes, no as far as the billboard staying then?
Well, the issue as it
we
relates.
didn't really look at that because the plans didn't include it
Right.
on it.
Right.
So we'd have to look a little more into and give you a better answer to that question. But initially, with the plans not on it, it was staff's assumption that it was being removed. So it was not kind of,
Okay.
so if you want more answers as to that question, I would say we need to put it back on, have it on the site plan, and we can also get you answers as to what the options are.
And they would have to come back then?
Yes.
There's no good way around this one. All right. So I guess the polling question then is, should they come back to us with the billboard indicated on the site plans? Or,
Did they have to come back and show them on the site plan, or you're okay with them adding it prior to going to the board? And you guys wouldn't see it on there anymore?
But if we wanted to recommend that it be removed, they'd have to come back with it on it first, and then we say, okay, thanks for putting it on, we want it off. Is
I
that,
think that's going to be
I don't think we
another
can really
board
tell them
decision,
that.
right?
Right, it's not up to us for them to own it or not.
No, not
It's
ownership.
nothing to do with us.
just to be there?
It's theirs.
Yeah.
For us is to decide if we want them to come back and show exactly where it is on the plan, or we're okay if it's gonna go straight to a board, right?
If I may say, we could show you tonight where it would be located.
We know.
Yeah, we know
Right
where,
next to that
yeah.
transformer.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
just-
not trying to be funny.
Yeah.
If you don't know, I mean, literally, we can we can show you.
No, we know, the challenge for me specifically is we are charged with making sure the village is beautified and it looks how the plan says it should look. Having a giant billboard in front of a business now, and it just doesn't look good. And our purview is not to look at the financial aspect of your plan to us. It's to look at how it looks to the village. So that's, for me, I think it looks nicer if it's not there, just because it's kind of just an eyesore. Anyway, it's my take.
And it is an entry to our village, and
Yes. It's like, that's like the
kind of sign
border.
that you would expect on a tollway or something, not.
Maybe we could put a giant wheeling sign on it forever.
So,
I mean, if you guys want further clarification, we would need to continue it, because I would need to take a look at the lease to even know what the ownership interests and rights are, to give you a better idea of what your options are. Because there's just billboards are very complicated. You have First Amendment issues, you have, it's legal non-conforming use aspects, but you also are dealing with the special use here. So there's a lot of different things at play.
Was there no commentary at concept review from the board?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there was.
there was some.
There was, okay.
That's when Attorney Furlow said.
Oh, right.
Very expensive.
Yes.
Okay, so that's our big hangup right now. Well, let's put that one aside for now. Let's go to the sidewalk issue. We'll do a poll on whether or not the commission feels that a sidewalk on Sumac is necessary, but remembering that it is our code to require it. Commissioner Creech.
Well, can you clarify that? Is it code to require it or just?
Yeah, if it's code to require it,
code?
then how can we even take a poll?
Because it's similar how code requires bike racks, and you can always not have
Okay.
them on there.
Okay.
I would like to see a sidewalk on either side.
Okay. Commissioner Yednak?
Yes on Milwaukee, no on Sumac.
We're just talking about Sumac.
Commissioner Blanova?
Yes, in Milwaukee.
What about
This is not the poll, it's
It's really the
Sumac.
one on Sumac that I'm asking about.
You said
No on Sumac.
Commissioner Kalis?
Yes, sidewalk on Sumac.
And I say yes too, so it's 3-2. 3-2.
So then the next poll
Next
is
poll
whether or
is
not
there.
we need to look further into being able to move it to the other side of the street. That's regarding site plan approval.
Well, can I just ask them if they prefer north or south side? And we go from there?
Well, the problem is if they've stated that they prefer the south side. The issue is that staff has not been able to look at it to confirm.
And then we would
That
need to
works.
see new site plans.
Correct.
For sure.
Well, do you prefer the south side, or were you recommending that you could
Yeah, I
if
was
we
just going to say
preferred
that
it?
that may be a better option as we were looking at the plan today. I don't, at this point, it doesn't matter to me if it's north or south.
Well, you made a statement, though, that looking, and we can't tell from the pictures in front of us, and I apologize, I didn't drive out there, but you were saying that if there were a continuous sidewalk all the way down Sumac, you said you evaluated it and the
Yeah.
south side made more sense? Is
It
that
does look
true?
like topographically, it's better on the other private properties along Sumac. And it does appear there's room for us to do it over there, and it would avoid a couple of driveways for people to cross. So just saying, we're open to locating it or looking at locating it over there if we and staff agree that that's a better option.
It's not the airport land, but it's right next to the airport. But I don't know if it matters.
So, what do we do?
I think you take a poll of whether or not the Plan Commission has a strong preference to be on the north or the south.
Well,
Well,
No.
before we do that, though, I would think, wouldn't we defer that to staff? Because I think if you're going to start the sidewalk on Sumac Road on this one property, it would make more sense to evaluate the length of Sumac Road and where it
Exactly.
makes sense Because if it does make more sense on the south side to go all the way down Sumac Road, then wouldn't that be our recommendation? And that's why I would defer the recommendation to staff.
Well, I don't think staff has a recommendation in terms of where it
I mean,
should be.
but we're not, we're talking about future extension of the sidewalk for the other properties, and we don't have those other properties in front of us, and I didn't go out to the site to look all the way down.
Kyle, you mentioned the future sidewalks down Sumac, yes?
We don't have any intention of installing sidewalk on Sumac. We have intention of installing sidewalk from Hints down to Sumac.
Okay.
Milwaukee.
On which?
On Milwaukee.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
never mind.
Yeah.
If I may just say too, I didn't mean to make a big deal out of it. I just want to kind of offer that we're open to something different
That's
than
why
what
we
the
ask these
site plan
questions.
shows, if that's what makes sense with
It's fine.
staff. So,
Well, we can approve the site plan as given, and if they want to take that on, that challenge on down the road, they
Sure.
can do that.
Yeah, they can do that, yes. Mhm. It sounds like there isn't a strong preference from the petitioner to have this be a stumbling point. So I think, that being the case, we can just easily remove this as a hurdle and just leave it on the plan as is. The plan commission's already polled that they'd rather see the sidewalk on Sumac, so at this point, the sidewalk is on Sumac, it just happens to be on the north side. The petitioner, if they reassess it down the road, can, submit a revised plan to staff for a thorough review, and if we feel that it needs to come back to the plan commission, we would do so. If not, if we feel it's something that we could, approve per the code administratively, then we would do that.
Okay. So then we don't need any more polling.
No, well, we need to resolve the billboard issue.
Pardon?
So, the billboard.
Yes.
So here are two options. We can either continue it to come back with more information and discuss it at this level, or you could give your, not as a condition, but the planning commission's recommendation on your thoughts on the billboard, and then between now and the next village board meeting, Jim and I will work on a legal opinion on what can even be done with the billboard so that the board is aware.
So we would just be giving our opinion on.
Yeah, and it would be
whether
including
or
in the
not-
facts and findings, and it would be what your preferences, and then the board will make the final decision.
Right.
And then it wouldn't delay it.
Good idea.
Yes.
And if it is to remain, they have to add it to the drawings before they can
Yes.
get permits or
Yeah.
anything.
Yes, yes. And I guess maintain as far as like updating paint or anything like that, if that's something the
Yeah.
commission feels strongly about.
Can I ask
Yes.
one more clarifying question you might
Sure.
not know the answer to? Is the legal complexity that was stated mostly because of being in a lease? Like when the lease ends, does it get easier or cheaper?
No. So the issue with leases with billboards is that they usually automatically renew. So if you require a billboard to come down, it is essentially like a taking, such as like an eminent domain action, and you have to pay money. There's also other legal issues. It's a legal non-conforming use that is staying and not changing, and it is at times seen as its own separate use that is kind of murky in the law because you're getting a special use with the new use here. So that's why it's complicated.
It's so protected, the billboards.
Yeah, because your
Man.
First Amendment free speech issues there too. It is
Okay.
it's very tricky, and I cannot give you an answer off the fly.
No, I just culturally,
without
like
having a lot
billboards are
more
kind of.
information.
Is there a long-term lease involved here?
yes, there is, and there's still term on the lease.
Yeah, so there's that too.
Okay, I really don't want to make it a thing. I don't want it to hold up things, but anyway. Okay.
Do you know how long that lease is right now?
I would have to look back at it. I don't have that offhand.
Do you have a problem providing us a copy of that so we at least know kind of information?
I can't answer that right now because
Okay.
we currently don't, the lease is not with us. It's with the
Right.
property owner. So
Okay.
it's complicated on our end as well.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, maybe we can talk,
Yeah,
you know.
we're certainly
later.
willing to talk with you outside of this. And
Yeah.
All right, so in general, just as your opinion, should the billboard stay or go away? Commissioner Creech?
In a perfect world, I would like to see it go.
Commissioner Yednek?
Yeah, over time, have it just disappear.
Commissioner Blanova,
Is that an answer?
It don't matter to be honest.
you don't care either way?
No.
Commissioner Kalis?
I don't want it there, but I will say it should stay just because, yeah, it's fine. Because because it seems like it's impossible, or I guess it's not impossible, it just takes money.
And we're just giving
Okay.
our.
No, we're
opinion
just
on
giving
it.
a.
Should it stay?
Want it or not?
No.
And I would say no too, so it's 4.5.
I was wondering what that one was.
3.5.
Yeah, 3.
Commissioner Villanova didn't care if it stayed or goes. So she would be on more
So
of the
it's
stay.
4 no's.
Yeah, 4 no.
Oh, 4
But we
no.
were saying Kalis is like a half because
Yeah,
he's kind of changing his mind.
okay.
But that's not going to be a condition of
No,
approval.
not a
It's just a-
condition, just
Recommendation.
for the board to look at.
Like everything.
All right,
Well, they were pretty adamant.
is there anything else from your side?
No, sir, I think we're good.
Kyle, anything else? Ron, anything? No, sir. Steve? Mallory?
Steve, will you read the conditions, though?
Yes.
So condition number 1 is pavement markings shall be added to the eastern driveway on Sumac Road to include an arrow pointing into the site and text enter only or similar to the acceptance of engineering division. Number 2, for a looped water main, a plat of easement shall be required and provided prior to engineering permit issuance. Number 3, the sidewalk proposed in the private Sumac road limits will need to be added to the plat of easement with language stating the walk is to be owned and maintained by the easement owner. Number 4, due to the close proximity to Milwaukee Avenue, engineering recommends eastern full access be right in, right out. And 5, prior to the issuance of certificate of occupancy, a permit for landscape irrigation shall be submitted for village review. And number 6, a bike rack shall be added to the site plan.
Well, for number 4, didn't the petitioner actually say that was going to be right in only? That's not even going to be right in, right out.
Yeah, we're proposing right in only.
Yeah, that's not going to be an exit at all. It's going to be an entrance only.
Are you guys okay? You're okay with the right and only?
That's what the
Yeah,
drawing.
I think we
looks like.
proposed a right in, right out, but they came back with just
Okay.
a right in only, and we're fine with that.
So we can remove that, condition. So there would just be 5 conditions. The condition regarding Sumac.
Just make sure that they mark it, that it's right in only.
That's what the
or no
drawing
exit, right?
The condition regarding the easement for Sumac Road, for the sidewalk on Sumac Road, that will be in the conditions, and then it would be the petitioner's obligation at the village board to argue why they shouldn't have that, and leave that for the village board to decide if the village board wants to take that ownership and maintenance responsibility.
And then you can have, a drawing made with the sidewalk on the south side to present to them?
Yeah, if they'd like to.
If they
No.
want.
Pardon?
If they want.
Yeah. Once you make sure you can actually fit it over there. All right.
And that's on both special uses?
No, that's on the special use for the gas station, convenience store,
Okay.
and the site plan. That's for petition 2019-17A,
Okay.
which is where the site plan and appearance approval is part of.
Just
Commissioner Creech?
clarifying.
Traffic study?
Traffic study, they have it, they
They have it,
provided.
they're going to submit it to you?
They can, yeah, we can
Is
ask.
that going to be part of the condition, or?
Typically, we wouldn't have the traffic study itself be part of the.
Okay.
But we could ask, we can,
Well, just so that the board can see the,
okay.
it would be
that-
helpful.
Ben, is that fine with you to provide a
Yep.
traffic study?
Yep.
Okay, I will add that traffic, prior to village board, Commissioner Creech?
I'm sorry, what?
Prior to the village board
Yes.
review.
Okay, prior to village board, consideration, a traffic study shall be submitted. Okay.
And there are no conditions on
Not for,
17B.
right, correct.
All right, so do I hear a motion on
So moved.
2019-17A?
Second.
Commissioner Creech?
Yeah.
Who seconded?
Gednick.
Gednick?
Gednick. Second.
All right. Commissioner Creech,
Yes.
Commissioner Yednick,
Yes.
Commissioner Belanova,
Yes.
Commissioner Kalis votes yes, Chairman Johnson.
Yes. Now on 2019-17B, the special use to establish a sit-down restaurant. Do I hear a
So
motion?
moved.
Second.
Creech, Kalis.
Commissioner Creech.
Yes.
Commissioner Kalis votes yes, Commissioner Belanova,
Yes.
Commissioner Yednick,
Yes.
and Chairman Johnson.
Yes. We'll have some things for you to sign. I gotta shorten my name. You get done too fast.
I only write 2 letters in my name.
I can't even read my own. All right. There's 4 sheets for you to sign, and you get to keep 2 of them. Oh, you got a pen, all right. Wait a minute,
Yeah.
you got 2 of the same.
Yeah, I think, yeah, there's one for each item.
All right.
Thanks
Need a
lot.
motion to
Touch base with
close
you
the
later.
public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
That's just a voice, right?
Correct.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Approval of minutes of June 27, 2019, including findings for dockets number 2019-14 and 2019-18. Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Kalis and Yednick. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Other business.
Hold on a second.
Sorry, what?
Jack, if you want to leave, you can go ahead and leave, but feel free to stay if you'd like.
He's just fascinated.
Okay. Okay, no
We
problem.
have, we have a vacancy.
We have 2 vacancies. You're the one.
Sorry, go ahead now.
That was fun.
Other business. Let's start with Mr. Robles.
Thank you. I know I introduced at least Marcy in our last Plan Commission meeting that she was going to be our new village planner, but Marcy is here tonight. Marcy Nyes is here with us, starting as village planner. So over the course of the next couple of weeks and months, I'll be working closely with Marcy in transitioning her over to doing the Plan Commission, and Marcy will be your new staff liaison and staff lead for the Plan Commission. So just want to welcome Marcy to the Plan Commission here.
So at some point, we start directing all our questions to Marcy.
Correct,
right?
correct,
You
absolutely.
get your Thursday nights back.
Not right away, but eventually.
All right, anything else?
That's all.
While you have the floor.
That's it, thank you.
Commissioner Creech, any other business?
Welcome, Marcy. I have nothing else, thank you.
Commissioner Yednick?
Welcome. That's all I have. Thanks.
Commissioner Blanova?
Thank you. Yes, welcome. If nothing else further.
And Commissioner Kalis?
Welcome. my family enjoyed the new park at Heritage Park today. I think it opened today, so that's exciting to see the Parks Division continuing to make wonderful areas for our children to play in, and they're all very, very nice playgrounds, so I'm pleased to see what the village is doing there. So thank you to Wheeling, and that's it.
All right, thank you. And I had no other business. Village staff over there, anything? Marcy, welcome aboard. Be a pleasure working with you. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned.